God revealed 3 powerful days that will change everything. Get ready now. There are moments in life that do not arrive with thunder or lightning, but they shift the entire foundation of your being. God does not always speak through earthquakes or fire. Sometimes he whispers through revelation. And when he does, everything within you stands still. This message is not ordinary. It is a divine signal, a spiritual countdown to a transformation that will alter everything you thought you knew about your journey. 3 days have been revealed, not as dates on a calendar, but as sacred turning points in your consciousness. These are not coming to you, they are awakening within you. You will not find them by watching the sky or marking a clock. You will feel them as a breaking, a building, and a birthing. They carry the power to lift you from lack to abundance, from fear to confidence, from confusion to clarity. This is not a motivational message, it is a prophetic one. The one who called you before the foundation of the world is stirring your spirit now, calling you to prepare, not with your hands but with your heart. The question is not, when will these days come? They are already moving through you. The question is, will you be ready to rise when everything changes? Because when God speaks, time obeys, doors open, and destinies are rewritten. Get ready, everything is about to change. There comes a sacred moment in the journey of every soul when the veil lifts, and suddenly, everything you once believed about who you are and what you're capable of begins to collapse under the weight of divine truth. This is the first day, the day of recognition, not a day found on the calendar, but a holy awakening within consciousness. It is the day when you no longer search for God outside yourself, but discover he has been seated within you all along. The day of recognition is not an external event, it is an internal unveiling. It is the hour when you stop asking for signs and instead realize you are the sign, you are the proof of what God can do. You are the evidence of divine imagination in form. On this day, life stops being random. Everything you thought was coincidence, accident, or even failure is suddenly seen as precision, as a perfectly arranged path designed to lead you to yourself. You realize your entire life has been a divine setup, not to harm you, but to awaken you. You look at your past, your pain, and your disappointments with new eyes, and instead of shame, you feel honor. Because now you see the deeper truth. God was never punishing you, he was preparing you. Every no, every delay, every betrayal was part of the design. On this first day, you no longer identify yourself by your name, your title, your failures, or your wins. You identify yourself as consciousness. As awareness, as the eternal I am. That is the first truth to flood your soul, that you are not what you have, what you've done, or what's been done to you. You are what you accept as true. And here the weight of responsibility is both terrifying and liberating. You begin to see that life is not happening to you, it is happening through you, by you, as you. This is the day when you look at your world not as something separate, but as something reflecting. Life is a mirror, and you are the projector. The world is not reacting to your words, but to your assumptions. What you assume, you attract. What you accept, you receive. What you imagine, you eventually experience. On this first day, you stop begging and start becoming. You realize that your prayers are not cries to a distant God, but blueprints etched into the fabric of reality through the power of imagination. To think feelingly of a thing is to call it into being. To persist in a state is to summon the conditions to match it. On this day, faith becomes more than a word, it becomes a tool. You see that faith is not belief without evidence, it is acceptance without doubt. Faith is feeling the thing real before your eyes can confirm it. It is the audacity to live as if it already is, knowing that the world will reshape itself to match your inner conviction. You are no longer hoping, you are knowing. And this knowing becomes a frequency. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, pray differently, not because circumstances have changed, but because you have. On this day of recognition, you finally understand that the most powerful phrase in the universe is I am. Whatever follows those words, whether I am broken or I am healed, becomes the seed of your future. You no longer speak carelessly. You begin to watch your inner conversations because you now realize they are not silent. They are commands. You stop declaring what is and start declaring what must be. You shift from describing life to designing it. The day of recognition is not just an awakening. It is a repentance, And repentance is not weeping at an altar. It is a radical shift in thought. It is changing the way you see, feel, and believe. It is turning from the illusion of separation to the truth of union. It is waking up from the nightmare of powerlessness and realizing you've been holding the pen of your story all along. And once you realize that there is no going back, you can't unknow this power, you can't unsee the truth, from that moment forward, excuses die and authority rises, victimhood dissolves and dominion emerges. You begin to walk as a creator. You understand that your inner conversations shape your outer world. Your assumptions are more potent than your actions. Your inner state attracts people, events, and outcomes that match your frequency. And so you no longer try to change the outer world. You change yourself. You become the thing you seek. You embody the outcome you desire. You think from the end, not of it. You don't pray for healing. You feel healed. You don't wait for love. You become love. You don't ask for favor. You walk in it. The day of recognition births a new version of you, one who no longer looks for signs but becomes one who no longer chases blessings but attracts them, one who no longer needs validation because they know they are the beloved. This day changes everything, not because God finally decided to move, but because you finally aligned with the truth that he never stopped. You just didn't see it until now. You begin to understand that God reveals through consciousness. He speaks through desire. He guides through imagination. And if he gave you the vision, he also gave you the ability to bring it to pass, not through struggle, but through surrender to the higher law. You realize that the world bends to the man or woman who believes it must, that circumstances yield to the one who refuses to bow to fear, that heaven responds to boldness, not arrogance, but spiritual boldness grounded in divine identity. This day is not loud. It is silent, but it roars within you. You may look the same, but you are not. A divine transaction has taken place. Ignorance for insight, doubt for dominion, fear for faith. And now the journey begins. Not outside, but within. This first day is the cornerstone of everything that will follow. Without it, nothing changes. With it, everything does. You no longer wait. You awaken. You no longer strive. You align. You no longer ask when. You declare now. And because you recognize, everything recognizes you. Doors open. Favor locates. Opportunities arise. Not because God just started working, but because you just started believing. The day of recognition is the day you rise, and from this day forward nothing remains the same. The second day is unlike the first, not because it's greater in power, but because it demands deeper surrender. This is the day of reversal, the sacred turning point where the entire structure of your inner reality begins to collapse and rebuild. It is not destruction, it is divine rearrangement. It is the moment when everything you once accepted as truth begins to feel foreign. What was once familiar becomes uncomfortable. The way you used to think, feel, react, hope, and even pray no longer fits the new version of you that was born on the day of recognition. This second day comes as both a test and a transformation. And make no mistake, it will not arrive quietly. The world around you may seem chaotic, but what is really happening is a holy reversal from the inside out. This is when God begins to undo every illusion you believed about lack, limitation, separation, and smallness. The day of reversal is the great unlearning. It is the spiritual surgery that extracts falsehoods from your identity and replaces them with truth so sharp, so undeniable, it cuts through centuries of conditioning in a single breath. You begin to see that the power is not outside of you. It never was. And now every situation that once ruled your emotions begins to bow to your consciousness. The day of reversal is where assumptions are challenged. Old stories rise to the surface for their final confrontation. Limiting beliefs try to scream louder than your vision. Circumstances may look worse, not because things are going wrong, but because the old world is fighting to stay alive. What's happening is not punishment, it's purification. It's the divine friction that comes when a higher reality begins to press against the walls of your former self. This is the day when most people give up, not realizing that the storm is proof of the shift. The day of reversal comes when you're in the hallway between what you believed and what is now becoming. The door to the past is closing, but the door to the future hasn't fully opened, and here faith must stand alone. But this is the sacred moment, the womb of creation, the darkness before resurrection. This is when you learn to reverse your focus from what's happening around you to what's happening within you. You stop reacting and start revealing. You begin to use the power of mental revision, not to lie to yourself, but to reclaim authority over your inner world. You look at circumstances, and instead of accepting them as final, you revise them as fuel. You refuse to let external facts define your spiritual truth. You begin to remember who you are in the face of opposition. When fear rises, you affirm your faith. When delay taunts you, you dwell in the end result. When nothing around you agrees with what you've imagined, you persist anyway, because you now understand what you accept inwardly must manifest outwardly. This is the law. The day of reversal is the breaking of the mirror. You no longer allow life to dictate your state. You allow your state to dictate your life. You stop identifying with circumstances and start identifying with consciousness. You realize that every challenge is a test of assumption. Will you return to the old state of lack, or will you persist in the new state of abundance? Will you revert back to doubt or rise in dominion? You stop saying, "I'll believe it when I see it," and instead declare, "I'll see it when I believe it." That is the reversal. That is the true shift. You realize that circumstances are not causes, they are effects, and the real cause is what you carry in the silence of your soul. The world bows to the one who knows their power, and on this second day your power is no longer a concept. It is a conviction. Even when everything around you tries to drag you back into fear, you stand still and declare the end. You assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You live in the reality of what is unseen, not because you're avoiding reality, but because you're creating it. You understand that your inner world is not imagination. It is the blueprint of tomorrow. This reversal is the point where heaven kisses earth, where vision overrides visibility. You are no longer a slave to your senses. You do not need evidence to believe. You are evidence. You are the walking manifestation of divine imagination. You don't need people to agree. You don't need signs in the sky. You are the sign. This reversal turns every no into a new direction. Every closed door becomes a compass. Every delay becomes development. You no longer see obstacles as punishment, but as practice, and you understand that everything is responding, not to what you say, but to what you embody. You no longer hope for change, you become it, and that becoming is not always seen by others, but it is felt by the universe. On the day of reversal, your energy shifts from need to knowing. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop asking and start assuming. You stop doubting and start deciding, and the universe responds, not later but now, not because you begged but because you believed. You start to move in alignment with your desired reality, not as a faker but as a forerunner. You walk as if it's already done. You speak as if it's already yours. You prepare as if the door has already opened. This is not delusion. It is spiritual dominion. You are no longer waiting on the world. The world is waiting on you. The day of reversal flips everything upside down so it can finally be set right. It's when you stop praying for rescue and start declaring victory. You stop asking for help and begin assuming favor, and it's not arrogance, it's awareness. You're not demanding from God, you're awakening as the channel through which God works. This is the reversal, when you no longer separate yourself from the power that made you. You realize that separation is the greatest illusion, and union is the ultimate truth. You and the source are not divided, you and the promise are not distant. The reversal proves that what you desire is not ahead of you. It is within you, waiting to be assumed. On this day, you learn the secret. You don't move toward your future, you move from it. You don't try to get the thing, you become the person who already has it. That shift, quiet, internal, and intentional, creates earthquakes in the realm of form. It rearranges reality, it disrupts time. It bends space, and suddenly what was one day becomes today. What was impossible becomes inevitable. The day of reversal is not the end, it is the threshold, and once you cross it, you will never be the same. You now walk as a creator, you speak as one who knows, you love as one who lacks nothing, you give as one who's overflowing, you pray not to change God's mind, but to change your state, because now you know, all things respond to your assumption. All things obey your feeling, all things mirror your faith. You are no longer the person who started this journey. The day of reversal has redefined you, and soon the world will have no choice but to catch up. The third day is not a continuation, it is a culmination. It is not just the next step, but the divine arrival into the reality you once only dared to imagine. This is the day of resurrection, the day when the invisible becomes visible, when the spiritual takes on flesh, and when the inner state you faithfully assumed finally emerges in the outer world with power, clarity, and undeniable proof. It is not resurrection from the grave of the body, but from the grave of doubt, fear, small thinking, and separation. On this day you are no longer trying to become, you are. You no longer chase, seek, hope, or plead, you embody. You move from waiting for it to happen to realizing it has already happened within, and now it must manifest without. The day of resurrection is when the world begins to conform to the inner reality you have nurtured in silence. It is when the promises you held in your heart, the ones that no one else could see, understand, or believe in, begin to show up with divine precision, not because the universe is finally kind to you, but because you finally believed enough to persist. You didn't give up when it was hard. You didn't walk away when there was no evidence. You didn't collapse under delay or resistance. You remained still, held the state, and now, the old has passed away, and behold, all things have become new. This resurrection is not random. It is not luck. It is the exact consequence of spiritual law obeyed in stillness. What you dared to feel as real, even when reality screamed otherwise, now becomes your lived experience. It was never about earning it, it was about embodying it, and because you stayed in the end, life had no choice but to catch up. The day of resurrection is the moment the world realizes what you knew all along, that what is seen is only a reflection of what is felt. That feeling is the secret, and your inner world is the seed of all manifestation. You understand now that faith was the bridge, imagination was the womb, and persistence was the midwife that birthed this new world into form. You are not surprised by the shift. You are grateful but not shocked, because you knew it when you felt it. You knew it when you assumed it. You knew it when no one else did. You knew that consciousness creates reality, and now the resurrection proves it. This is the day when every no you ever received begins to reverse, where rejection becomes redirection, where the same doors that closed before you now open on their own. Where the very things that once felt impossible become normal, expected, even easy, not because the world changed, but because you did, and in your change the world had to obey. On the day of resurrection, you stop needing permission. You stop asking whether you're worthy. You stop measuring your value by outer circumstances, because the appearance of the promise has confirmed what your soul has known forever, that you were chosen, you were called, and you were designed for fulfillment, not failure. Everything that once looked like defeat now becomes fuel for glory. The day of resurrection is not the end of your spiritual process. It is the beginning of a new way of living. You don't revert to the old ways of striving, hustling, or performing. You walk forward from this day knowing that your reality responds to your inner state always, that the outer is not your master, it is your mirror. You no longer fight with conditions, you speak to them. You no longer beg for favor, you walk in it. You no longer wait to feel worthy. You declare, I am, and the world reflects back the image you hold inside. Resurrection means you no longer identify with the old version of yourself. You release the version of you who doubted, feared, hesitated, and compromised. That self is gone, buried in the past, along with every belief that once limited you. You rise now as the version of you who has seen the end, accepted the end, and lived from the end long enough for it to become fact. You understand that all creation is finished. It was finished from the beginning. The moment you imagined it, it existed. The moment you felt it real, it was done. The only thing left was your acceptance of it. And once accepted in consciousness, it had no choice but to take form. Resurrection is not just the fulfillment of desire. It is the confirmation that you and the divine are one, that the Father within you does the work, that you are not separate from the source of life, you are its expression, you are the channel through which the invisible becomes visible, and now that you know, you live differently, you love differently. You walk into rooms with quiet power, not needing recognition because you recognize yourself. You no longer explain your journey, you demonstrate it, the fruit is undeniable, the blessing is visible, the alignment is palpable. This is not about showing off, it's about showing what God can do through belief. You begin to understand the true nature of power. It doesn't shout, it radiates. You don't need to announce your breakthrough, it announces itself. The day of resurrection is your arrival into what already was. It is the realization that nothing was ever missing, only misidentified. You now see that what you were waiting for was waiting on you to feel it real. And once you did, heaven aligned with earth, the law responded, the seed produced, the promise delivered. You walk now with reverence, not for what happened, but for what you became in the process. Because resurrection isn't just about receiving the thing, it's about becoming the kind of person who couldn't help but attract it. You became the answer, you became the open door, you became the fulfillment. And in doing so, life had to respond in kind. You are now in the realm where miracles feel normal, where manifestations flow like breath, where peace is not the result of conditions, but the foundation of them. You are not shaken by delay. You know how it works. You are not rattled by resistance. You know it's just the final shadow before the light. Resurrection has changed your relationship with reality. You see through appearances now. You don't panic when it's dark. You remember that resurrection always begins in the tomb. It's never about what it looks like. It's always about what you accept. This is the day of resurrection. And from here on, you no longer wonder if it works. You know, and that knowing is your greatest treasure. That knowing is your peace, your power, and your posture. It's the quiet strength that comes from walking with the Creator as the created. You and the vision are one. You and the promise are one. You and the result are one. The day of resurrection proves it. And now your life will never be the same. Not because something outside changed, but because you did. You became what you believed. You stood when it was hard, you felt it when it was invisible, you stayed when it made no sense, and now you rise, not into a dream, but into your divine design. When the Spirit whispers, "Get ready," the carnal mind begins to look at calendars. It scans dates, watches the clock, anticipates timelines, and waits for something to happen to it. But those who walk in the knowledge of spiritual law know that "get ready" is not a signal to pack your bags. It is a call to align your being. It's not about the day marked on your schedule. It's about the day you decide to become the version of yourself who already has what you once only imagined. Get ready is not preparation for an event. It's preparation for embodiment. It's not about timing. It's about tuning, not about waiting. It's about assuming the state. For the spiritual man, time is irrelevant. To the awakened soul, the only real time is now. To get ready does not mean to look ahead with anxiety, but to align within with certainty. It is the posture of the one who understands. Nothing comes until you are it. And when you are it, it comes. Not because it was finally time, but because you finally took your place in the timeline of your own creation. The reason many never walk into what they are promised is not because the promise is delayed, but because the mind remains in a state of waiting, hoping, longing, and believing later. But later is a lie. The power is always in the present. The future you dream of is not somewhere ahead. It already exists in the invisible realm, and getting ready is not about reaching it but matching it. You don't prepare by striving. You prepare by shifting. You don't align by effort. You align by awareness. The inner world must be synchronized with the outcome you desire. That is the preparation. That is the readiness. The most powerful preparation is to feel now what you would feel then. To occupy the emotional and spiritual state of the fulfilled version of yourself. To walk into rooms not with the energy of someone who is waiting, but someone who is already appointed. To speak not from lack, but from fulfillment. To worship not out of fear, but out of knowing. This is the readiness that heaven responds to. This is the frequency that bends the seen world to your invisible decision. Getting ready is not about trying harder, it's about believing deeper. It is the conscious daily decision to refuse to be moved by appearances and to instead be governed by the unseen law of consciousness. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop consulting your circumstances. You stop asking but when, and you start declaring now, because what you do not feel now, you will not hold later. You cannot receive what you don't already believe. You cannot manifest what you still question. Your readiness is revealed by your mental diet, your assumptions, your inner conversations. Are you imagining delays, resistance, and struggle, or are you imagining doors open, favor flowing, and peace overflowing? The answer to that question is your level of readiness. The inner world is always broadcasting the signal you are tuned to. If you are tuned to lack, life will echo lack. If you are tuned to increase, life must echo abundance. This is not theory, it is spiritual law. You attract not what you want, but what you are. And to become the version of yourself that matches the promise is to step into the state ahead of the event. You speak the language of the end result. You act as though the door is already open. You don't prepare with fear. You prepare with certainty, with assumption, with rest. This is the paradox. True readiness is not frantic. It is still. It is not filled with noise. It is saturated with assurance. Those who are truly ready don't scream. They assume. They don't demand. They decide. And life responds not to force, but to frequency. It mirrors the dominant assumption. So to prepare is to assume a new identity, not in theory, but in being, in speech, in thought, in behavior, in vibration. You begin to pray differently. You don't pray for the thing, you pray from it. You speak as though it's already done, because in the realm of spirit it is done. And your only job is to dwell there long enough until the form appears to match the feeling. You don't need to see it to feel it. You feel it to see it. Getting ready is choosing the feeling of completion now. Feeling the joy now, feeling the freedom now, feeling the increase now, and in that feeling you become magnetic, you become a signal, a beacon, and what you hold within you begins to draw itself to you, not by hustle, but by harmony. You're no longer trying to make it happen. You are letting it unfold. You are surrendering to the rhythm of divine timing, which never runs late and never wastes a moment. And that surrender is not passive, it's powerful. It says, I am so aligned with what is coming, I no longer doubt it. I prepare not by watching the sky, but by preparing my soul. This is why you clean your inner house, not just your outer life. This is why you revise your thoughts. This is why you forgive. This is why you release resentment and fear. Because you are making room. You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. You cannot receive expansion while still entertaining contraction. So you prepare by letting go, you prepare by making peace with the past, you prepare by removing every inner voice that tells you it can't happen, you prepare by replacing that voice with one that says it already has, and that voice will be challenged. The moment you shift into alignment, life may test you, not to punish you, but to see if the new you is stable. The old world may knock, fear may reappear, lack may try to whisper, but readiness says, I don't listen anymore. Readiness says, I am already her, I am already him, I walk like it, I talk like it, I give like it, I bless like it, I pray like it, I serve like it, I rest like it, because I am not becoming, I am revealing. This is not pretense, it is prophecy. This is not delusion, it is destiny. Your soul already knows what your mind is still learning, that you are not chasing a future, you are embodying a vibration. You are not begging God to move. You are awakening to the truth that God already moved, the moment you believed, and that belief is the preparation, that faith is the key, that assumption is the gateway. So when heaven says get ready, don't look for dates, look within, don't wait for the stars to align. You align, don't wait for permission. You grant it, don't wait to be qualified. You are already called. And the moment you rise into the version of yourself that is at peace with the outcome will appear effortlessly, because manifestation is not a reward, it's a reflection. The life you desire is not created, it is accepted. The door you're looking for is not outside of you, it is unlocked by the state you dwell in now. So rise, not in anxiety, but in authority. Prepare, not for the day on the calendar, but for the state of being where heaven meets earth within you. That is what it means to get ready. It is not a countdown, it is a commitment, and when you commit to becoming, life will commit to responding, because the world cannot resist the soul who dares to live from the end and call it now. There is a sacred principle woven into the fabric of divine law. The moment you become the version of yourself that already possesses the promise, you no longer need to chase it. It begins to chase you. This is the power of alignment. This is the mystery behind every breakthrough, every answered prayer, every open door. You were never meant to strive your way into destiny. You were meant to align. And alignment is not about earning, performing, or persuading God to act. It is about stepping into the frequency of what has already been given. It is not the future you must reach. It is the state you must enter. The difference between chasing and attracting is your state of being. Chasing is rooted in the belief that something is missing. Attracting is grounded in the knowing that nothing is. When you chase, you send out the energy of lack, and lack will multiply. When you align, you radiate completion, and completion draws more of itself. This is why so many run endlessly in circles, praying, working, hoping, yet feeling stuck, because they are trying to acquire what can only be received through identity, not effort. You don't get what you want, you get what you are conscious of being, so the question is not, how do I get it, but who must I become to receive what's already mine? The shift from striving to alignment begins with awareness. Awareness that the kingdom is within you, that every version of you already exists in the eternal now. There is no waiting room in the spirit realm, only states of consciousness, and when you assume the state of the version of you who already has it, you enter into union with the outcome. And in that union the bridge of incidents begins to unfold. Life starts to move, not because you forced it, but because your assumption made it inevitable. You stop worrying about how it will come. You rest in the truth that the how is not your business. The how belongs to the law. The law arranges, orchestrates, and aligns the path the moment you dare to feel the thing real. So you stop fighting, you stop pushing, you stop hustling in desperation, you start breathing, receiving, and becoming. And in that becoming, everything that once felt far away starts to find you. The favor you were chasing begins to recognize you. The people you thought you had to impress start showing up. The opportunities you once begged for now knock on your door, not because you changed the world, but because you changed your state. This is the divine reversal. When you stop chasing, you start receiving. Not passively, but powerfully. You are not passive when you align. You are potent. You become a magnetic field of divine frequency, drawing into your reality everything that matches your assumption. You are no longer at the mercy of conditions. You create them. Not through control, but through consciousness. You become still but strategic, quiet but effective, invisible but unstoppable. The moment you align, you enter the vibration of answered prayer. You no longer talk about what's coming. You begin to move as if it's already here. You carry yourself with the weight of arrival, not the longing of delay. You don't ask, is it working? You declare, it is done, because you feel it, and that feeling becomes the signal. That feeling becomes the prayer. That feeling becomes the prophecy, and the world must rearrange to mirror it. Chasing is exhausting because it is unnatural. It is the opposite of divine flow. It says, I must do more to become more. But alignment says, I already am, I just choose to embody it. And embodiment is the secret key. You must become it to see it. You must step into the character of the fulfilled version of yourself. You must think, feel, speak, act, and expect from the end, not from the waiting. This is not about pretending. It's about assuming the role you were always meant to play. It's about shedding the costume of limitation and finally wearing the crown of authority, because until you do, you will continue to attract reflections of your doubt. Life does not give you what you hope for. It gives you what you believe, and belief is not a thought. It is a state. It is the dominant inner position you hold when no one is watching. So if you find yourself striving, stressing, or seeking from a place of anxiety, pause. Return to your source, realign, ask yourself not what you need to get, but what you need to remember, because the truth is, you already have it. You already are it. You are not building a new life. You are awakening to the one that's already finished in the invisible realm. And your work is not to chase it, but to allow it. You allow by being, you allow by feeling, You allow by resting in the end. You allow by walking in expectancy. You allow by letting go of resistance. When you align, your energy becomes clean. There is no desperation in your voice, no fear in your prayers, no panic in your plans. You move with clarity, speak with conviction, and make decisions from confidence. Because you are no longer ruled by the outer, you are anchored in the inner, and the inner world is where all creation begins. So the question is not where is it, but where am I? Am I in the state of fear or fulfillment? Am I in the vibration of lack or abundance? Am I acting like someone who is still begging, or like someone who has already received? This inner audit, it reveals the truth. It shows you where your faith lies. And if you find yourself out of alignment, do not panic. Simply return to the end, return to the feeling, return to the vision, and let your mind be renewed by the truth that you are not here to fight for scraps. You are here to manifest divine order, to reflect the glory of the invisible, to walk as a living demonstration of what it looks like when belief becomes embodiment. The chase ends the moment you remember that everything you're looking for is looking for you. Not the old you, the aligned you, the one who stopped entertaining doubt, the one who no longer lives by facts but by faith, the one who has chosen to stand in the vibration of already done. And once you stand there long enough, the world will stand with you. Because the world responds to identity, it bends to frequency, it obeys assumption, and assumption is not just what you say, it's who you are. So be her, be him, be the one who already holds the promise. Stop chasing, start attracting, let alignment do the work, because in the kingdom of spirit, chasing is over, becoming is the key, and once you become, there is nothing left to find, only everything waiting to find you.